Mr. Pinner,
What?
can I ask you a question?
No.
How long you been doing this?
Since I was younger than you.
Must have been around a bit. Seen a few things, yeah?
I don't think I was ever quite as stupid, though.
Heard a few stories, I bet. Go on. What's the most fucked up story you know?
That's 2 questions.
Go on, you can tell me. Man to man. We're in the same game, you can trust me. Loose lips, sink ships, and all that.
Fine. I'll tell you.
Sweet.
Bruno used to own a nightclub. The Nirvana, it was called. Dancing girls, the whole thing. The likes of you wouldn't have got past the front door. Eddie would have seen to that. Eddie Earl, he used to run the place for Bruno. They went back years. Anyway, Eddie was married to one of the main dancers in the club. Valentina, her name was. Her stage name, at least. She was beautiful. Took your breath away. I heard stories some punters actually burst into tears when they watched her dance. Eddie worshipped her. Couldn't blame him, she was perfect. If there was one thing would make me believe there was a God, it was her. But Eddie was the jealous type. Some might have said paranoid. It got so he could barely let her out of his sight, and when he did, he had someone else look out for her. She got wise to this, of course. She wasn't stupid. It got so it was like a game to her. She would slip away, just vanish. She enjoyed making him jealous. I remember how he got. Like a caged animal, pacing the club floor, waiting to turn around and bite somebody. And then she walked back in, all smiles and expensive perfume. Eddie dragged her into the office. Read her the riot act. We could hear him screaming halfway down the street. But she didn't care. I think she liked it. Making men feel that way. It wasn't long afterwards the gossip started that she was having an affair. Nobody knew who with. Was it a club employee or an outsider? Things got dicey. Everybody knew what would happen to any poor fucker Eddie found with his hands in Valentina's till. The atmosphere was pure poison. People pointing the finger before it got pointed back at them. But she didn't take a blind bit of notice. Just danced her dances and smiled her smiles. Eddie didn't have a thing on her. He might have suspected, but she was smarter than him. Until she got pregnant. That wasn't part of the plan. No, indeed. She insisted it was Eddie's. Aren't you happy? She said. You've always wanted a family. The thing is, Eddie had been married before and they'd never been able to have kids. Tried for years. So he wouldn't believe it was his. As far as Eddie was concerned, that was all the proof he needed. In the meantime, Bruno had been keeping an eye on this. After all, he had an investment to protect, and Eddie was, distracted. Things were fucked up. So Bruno had a quiet word in Eddie's ear. Told him the situation was bad for business. There needed to be changes made to put things back on an even keel. Nothing personal. Sometimes you just have to let some people go. So one night, he had a couple of us go to Valentina's flat to pick her up and offer her a lift to work. We'd been in the neighborhood, seemed like a good idea, blah, blah, blah. Did you know? She was smart, I wouldn't be surprised. But she was a clever one, that. She didn't give an inch. She played along right to the end. Didn't make it to the club, of course. I remember when we took her out of the car, her face staring up at us, still beautiful. But a job's a job. Wrapped her up, dumped her in the Thames. Felt that would be the end of it.
And what else?
After that, it all went quiet for a while. No one dared mention her name, of course. Some of the regulars would ask after her, but they shut up quick once they saw the look in Eddie's eyes. He started to hit the bottle. Just sat there in his private table, working his way through a bottle of scotch. It got so he never left the place. He ate, drank, and slept in the club. We'd open up in the mornings and find him either asleep on the couch in his office, or if he hadn't managed to make it that far, passed out in one of the booths. Meanwhile, there was all this talk. We didn't take it seriously at first, but then the other girls started to talk about how when they sat in Valentina's old seat, they felt funny, like someone was watching them. Or they got the shivers, like the temperature had just dropped 20 degrees. Only in Valentina's old seat, mind. Nowhere else in the room. We all thought it was bollocks. But then one night a girl ran screaming out of the room, said she'd seen Valentina look back at her from the makeup mirror. Her face all pale and dead, with horrible staring eyes. Oh, some people scoffed, but you couldn't deny this girl was genuinely frightened. She hunted in her notice there and then. After that, none of the girls would go anywhere near Valentina's seat. Eventually, word got to Eddie. We thought we'd be worried about what he'd say. But he didn't bat an eyelid, just smiled and said Valentina was always very particular about her spot. We just thought he was too drunk to care at that point. But then one night, he pulled me aside and started telling me this story about why he never left the club anymore. He said every evening after closing, Valentina would appear and dance for him. Never spoke to him, never looked at him, but night after night, regular as clockwork, she was there. Eddie told me one night he jumped up on the stage and tried to take her in his arms, but she just vanished into thin air. After that, he just sat and watched. I just thought he'd fucking lost it. I told Bruno about all this, and he was understandably concerned that a guilt-stricken dipso was looking after his club, so he asked me to sneak back in one night to check on Eddie, just to see for ourselves. Not that we thought there was anything in it, just figured maybe I could help him snap out of it. So that night, after closing, I went in through the back. The whole place was empty. Totally empty, totally dark. But then I heard music. Valentina's music. I know it sounds stupid, but I started to get goosebumps. Just standing there, hearing Valentina's music. I felt like a frightened little kid. Fucking ridiculous. So I pulled myself together and crept in through the kitchen and out into the club. Everything was still pitch black, save for one spotlight on the stage. I could just see Eddie sitting at his table, looking up into the light. And then